So in this video, I love this. I'm going to talk about how entrepreneurs deal with failure, and more specifically, the number one way that you can avoid it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 specific things that are just critical to handling failure. Number 1, what is the strategy that's just going to handle it? Number 2, how to look at the emotional side and avoid making just emotional decisions. How do you get into that logical side of your brain? And the third, how do you need to look at failure so it never stops you in your tracks again? So let's handle those 3 things. So as we look at failure, the number 1 thing to do to avoid processing it as failure is due diligence. Now, I've talked about due diligence on other videos, but let's dig into it a little bit. So failure is usually the lack of planning in a lot of times, and in a lot of situations, it's absolutely lack of planning. And it's the lack of really picking a good team, which links back to planning. So due diligence, right? So let's just talk about what does it take? Number 1, is the industry in the segment that you're looking at doing a deal, is it even viable? Is it really working or not working? I know so many people in 2005 and 6 were they knew they were at the top of the market, but they were on that emotional train. I gotta buy real estate, not seeing 8, 9, and 10 coming. We're here again. We're 2021 at this moment, and real estate is on fire post-pandemic, and it's going to be more and more like it. Now, how you're going to fail in it is to not really watch the trends, and that is part of due diligence. Other parts of due diligence is who's on your team. Who are you selecting to be part of your team? Now, I do a lot of real estate in a variety of markets. My theory and theme in living with real estate is I live where I want, but I invest where it makes sense. So very rarely am I investing in the market that I choose to live, because I have lived in the French Quarter, I have lived in Manhattan Beach, California, I've lived in Sausalito, I've lived in Lake Tahoe. So I live where I want, but I invest. My millionaire real estate market is Oklahoma City and Norman, Oklahoma, right? So I'm still in the Midwest markets. I'm in Boise because California is leaving in droves, but we got to watch it. Building costs are really high. So I'm just sharing some very personal experiences of watching that due diligence, watching the trend, and who is the team. Do they have enough experience to just not be swept away by the emotion of this runaway real estate train? And yet coming is going to be all the foreclosures for all of those in the pandemic that did not pay. So a lot is coming in the real estate space, but you got to be smart. And failing is not an option, is my attitude. So let's talk about some more due diligence, right? Because that is the number 1 reason, is the lack of planning and lack of due diligence. So let's dig in. Do the numbers work? So say you're out there watching my video and you say, I don't know how to look at numbers. Got a lot of people who can look at numbers, right? So find somebody. Do not guess. Do not learn on the internet some cash flow analysis formula. Find those of us mentors who we do cash flow analysis. We do it in our sleep. We can look at a market. Is it viable? Is it not viable? And I'm using real estate as an example, but let's take this to other places. Mortgages right now are on fire. Are they going to stay? Are interest rates going to stay this low? Don't know. Right now, you should be really focused on fixed, long-term, really low interest rate mortgages. You do variable, you're probably going to get killed going forward, right? What other things can you look at to look at due diligence, right? So you look at your team, you look at the vertical market, you look at the numbers. You've got to look at the numbers. What else would you be looking at? You'd be looking at your exit strategy. When are you going to sell? How are you going to get out? Right? And a lot of people don't look at the exit. So I could go on and on about the number 1, but let's get to number 2. The other reason that people fail as entrepreneurs is, I'm just going to say, their emotion around it. How do they code it? So first of all, when risk or fear or this emotion around money comes into your life, you code it as risky or failure, or something happens, you code it that way. I don't code anything that way. I just chalk it up to interesting learning. So it happened. So you didn't get the money you wanted, or the project didn't go as planned. I've had many projects that were supposed to be done in a year, 18 months, and there's now 3 years later, and it's still, in process or in progress. I don't see that as a failure. I actually say that as interesting challenges, right? So notice the languaging and emotion I'm putting around it. I'm putting positive, optimistic, curious emotions and codes around that. I'm not saying it's failure. I'm not saying it's scary. I'm not saying it's risky. And I don't have any fear around money. Money's just money. It's just a transactable currency that everyone has to have. So how I never looked at any of the failures and how I just don't live in any of that psychology, is I look at it as a lot of experience. I look at it as a lot of opportunity. I look at failure as a learning curve. Bill Gates says it best. You know, he said in his business plan perspective of how he grew Microsoft, he said, you know, I look at it like spaghetti. And it's like, well, that's odd. And he said, yeah, I just throw a whole bunch of strategies called spaghetti on the wall and pray to God something sticks. Now, he said it a little different than that, but it's the same. So as an entrepreneur, your job is to solve problems, right? Help other people, serve other people. So as long as you stay in that energy and that attitude, yeah, some things might not work the way you thought. I've launched books. Some of them worked, some didn't work. I was in The Secret, big success. But you know how many other videos I filmed over and over in these montage of videos that didn't ever go anywhere? I don't see them as failures. It was just interesting. In some ways, I say that was just practice for the best. So a lot of you, it's the way you're coding it. Never let failure stop you in your tracks. That's a choice. And you could also make the choice to just say, learning, successful. Let me put one last layer on this, is having a mentor. I've been mentored since I was 17 years old. My first mentor was a bank president in Nebraska. So I walked into the bank and he said, what would you want me to do? I don't mentor people. I said, well, I just read the book Think and Grow Rich, and I want to know how rich people make money. And he said, well, what would it look like? I said, I just want to come and ask you a whole bunch of questions about people that have money that put their money in your bank. And I just want to start a question and answer conversation with you. And then that mentoring grew into more formal mentoring, and I've been mentored by some of the greatest people that have walked this planet. You need a money and business mentor. Think about how much money you have spent in weight loss programs, at gyms, and all sorts of other things, music lessons, all these other things in your life. Yet the very thing that drives your financial life, your money or your business, and you have had no coaches or mentors. I can promise you, my coaches and mentors have helped avoid very costly failures, helped me recode that it's not failure, it's just an interesting thing that happened. How do you take the learning and move it forward? So never before have you, and never going forward, do you need to fail again. It's how you code it, how you process it, and how you keep moving on. So what I want you to do right now, and I really want to know your failure stories. I want you to comment. I want you to go detail. Was it a partnership? Just something you tried on your own? Like, what was your greatest failure in business? And let's just write about it, get it out of your system, and we aren't going back to it. We're not going to revisit it. We're going to have a conversation about it. And I have this saying, it's called, so what, now what? And I live my life by it. So what, that happened, and now what do you want to do? So going forward, we're not going to have like why, there's a little why in your life and there's a big why in your life. The little why in your life is the one that drones on about the failure. The big why is, what do you want? How are you going to have it? So what, now what? Now what questions look at, what do you want? How do you want it? And let's design that vision for your life. My goal is to make you a millionaire, and you're going to have some stumbling along the way. They're not coded as failures, and you're never going to quit. So once you're done commenting, I want the depth of your comments. And then I want you to start really writing about your so what, now what, right? And for some of you, you really need to go into the so what, because you actually are committed to your story. And your story is where you failed, and your story is what's keeping you failing. So journal forever about it, and then go burn it. And I know that sounds really odd, but I don't want you living in your past. I want you living in your future. We're coming out of this pandemic, and failure has been everywhere through this pandemic. And I can tell you story after story after story of people who've lost their businesses, they've lost their homes, landlords have lost commercial properties because their renters stopped paying. I can tell you story after story. They could code it as failure, or they could look at it as a now what situation. So leave your past behind. Doesn't serve you, doesn't serve your failures. Move forward to, what do you want? And I want you to write about it. I want you to think about it. I don't care if you put it on big whiteboards. What do you want in every area of your life? Bob Proctor and I did this amazing product process called Expression of Your Power. How do you express your power and stay in that optimistic, positive energy so you're not going to experience an activity as a failure? It may not get the result you want, but you know what? Instead of saying, oh, that was a total failure, I can't do it again, which how some people live. Some people are going to live through this pandemic and just choose to not recover. I want you to choose a life of what can I have and what can I want. So I have a gift. I want you to click on the link. It's called Expression of Your Power. It's coming from Bob Proctor and I. It is an amazing gift. I mean, it has got world-class accolades. And inside of there, we're going through a creative, strategic process to really help you untangle those stories that keep you locked and mired in that failure energy, and move you forward to the so what, now what is possible for your life.